Hello and welcome to the Productive on Purpose podcast. Are you a high-achieving woman of color who struggles with imposter syndrome, procrastination, and self-sabotage? Are you tired of going to bed each night hoping that tomorrow will be a better day, only for it to be more of the same? Are you sick of empty affirmations that make you feel good but don't actually lead to change? And are you over being shamed and yelled at to do the work with no insight as to how to get it done? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then friends, you are in the right place. I am your host, Dr. Kimmy, an award-winning, board-certified physician and professor. I am also your purpose coach. Here on the POP Podcast, we are about actual transformation. This podcast will provide actionable strategies to help you walk in your purpose. Let's get started. Thing that you want to share with the world. Someone might have a business idea or an idea for a nonprofit or, anything that you want to do. There's nothing, the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun, right? So someone has probably done it, but that does not negate the fact that you should add your voice to the conversation. There are people in this world that need to hear that message from you. The way that you construct it, the words that you use, the way that you relate to them is going to get that message across to them in a way that someone else is not going to be able to do. You have your people. Your people are out there. I know they are because I didn't necessarily know I had people. But so many of you guys have been messaging me, emailing, putting up reviews. I think we are up to 19 reviews now, which I've seen podcasts that have been around for much longer and have far fewer reviews. And these are true heartfelt reviews, not just, reviews of like, oh, I can't wait to see the podcast. Sometimes like NPR will put out a big show and people will start reviewing it before it even comes out. But you guys have been listening to the podcast, reflecting on it, and leaving honest and heartfelt reviews. And it's so incredibly rewarding to me. I wanted to read one of the reviews that I received. And this came from someone by the name of Nurse Stev. The title of the review is Real, Realistic, Reliable. I'm like, whoa. The title alone got me. That's so dope. So Nurse Stev says, I cannot wait to use her principles in my own life. Truly inspirational and drawn from real experiences. She's not just some random person telling you what to do with your life. She is highly educated and successful and applied them to her own life first. A definite must listen. And in this community, we're all high achieving, highly educated women. And the only difference with me is that I experienced that breaking point, that low that I talked about in my earlier episodes, and was able to kind of put the pieces back together and reconstruct things in such a way that was super helpful to me. And I really, really wanted to get that out there and share with my sisters, because there is no point in us being in this struggle by ourselves. Okay. Like, I was struggling for so long. It felt like I was the only one. And then it came to me that I cannot be the only one that's struggling with this. Like, I can't. Like, there's got to be other people out there that have also dealt with this issue. So thank you, Nurse Stev, for the review. Guys, please keep the reviews coming. The thing about reviews, when you review in Apple iTunes, it really, really allows Apple to suggest the podcast to other people. So Apple won't really put your podcast in front of others without a certain amount of reviews. And so I really appreciate all of the reviews that I have received thus far. So today's episode, we are going to be talking about our old friend, procrastination. And listen, this subject, man, this is what you guys are struggling with the most based on the reviews, based on the messages, the DMs I get, based on the text messages I get, based on face-to-face conversations. I even hopped on the phone with a few members of the Pop Squad yesterday, and this was a recurring theme, procrastination. How do I overcome it? And the thing is, when I was on the phone with the women yesterday, by the way, that was amazing. I planned to be on the phone for 15 minutes with each lady and ended up staying on the phone for an hour because y'all are just so dope, because y'all in the squad are dope. Okay. And we had amazing conversations, and we're all living very similar lives. So the women in the group that I spoke to, what they were saying to me is that I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I know I'm supposed to be studying for this exam. I know that I should just pull up the website for my LLC and file the paperwork. Why can't I do it? And guys, I was you for so very long. I just didn't understand why I couldn't get it done. Why can't I just do the things that I know I should be doing? And I want to allow you guys to have a little bit of grace with yourselves, because procrastination is actually a defense mechanism. And I'm going to explain that today because I wasn't fully clear on that. And the procrastination used to make me feel so much shame and guilt. And then I would beat myself up. And then you know what happens when you start beating yourself up? What happens? You procrastinate even more because you're feeling all those negative feelings. And when I realized and learned that procrastination was actually me just trying to protect myself, it allowed me to at least to start the conversation with myself and allow myself grace. And grace and, patience and non-judgment with yourself is kind of the first step to moving forward. So today we're going to talk about procrastination. I'm going to break down where it comes from, why it happens, right? And then we're going to start to discuss steps to overcoming procrastination. Now, I'm only going to touch on the steps to overcoming briefly, only because I'm going to do entire episodes on these steps, right? And so you heard some of them in the episode on the pop principles, and they're going to be a recurring theme. So don't feel super overwhelmed, like I didn't quite get the steps. Keep listening to the podcast every single Monday when it drops. You guys will become very, very familiar with the principles and how I have utilized them to overcome procrastination in my life. So the first thing about procrastination to realize is that procrastination is serving you in some way. Now, I am of the belief that every single thing we do serves us. I want to give you an example of that. So y'all know I just put my business out there. I'm not really like, you're just going to get it straight. Like I have, sometimes I have it together. A lot of times I don't. So I'm going to share with you the good, the bad, the ugly. So a couple of weeks ago, I was driving to work and I had a meeting that afternoon with my boss, with my mentor. And so this meeting was going to discuss promotion. Now I work in a medical center. I'm an assistant professor. And in order to be promoted to associate professor, there's a lot that you have to do. It's not simply, your boss kind of saying, I think you're eligible for a promotion. You have to actually demonstrate that you have regional acclaim. You have to have done a certain amount of published manuscripts, presentations. It's like a whole thing. It's a whole situation. And people prepare for promotion for years. And so I was meeting with my mentor to discuss promotion. Now I'm driving to work and I'm feeling some anxiety. Now, the thing about me, you'll realize, is like, I sometimes feel anxious about things, but I'll tell myself I'm fine. So I'll be like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's just my mentor. My mentor and I are cool. We have a great relationship. I've known him for years. It's not that big of a deal. But yet I'll still be feeling the butterflies inside. So I was definitely feeling the butterflies inside when I was driving to work. So I'm driving to work past McDonald's. Now, I am trying to do this whole intermittent fasting thing, and I love it because it prevents me from having to worry about breakfast for myself. So I basically just skip breakfast and eat lunch. So I'm driving. It's the morning. I'm like, okay, I'm on intermittent fasting. I don't need anything from McDonald's. Y'all, why? Next thing I know, why am I in the McDonald's line? Like, why? So I'm in the McDonald's line, and I honestly am like, why am I here? But at the same time, I'm feeling anxiety, right? I'm feeling those butterflies because of this meeting. And I didn't put them together. I was telling myself the meeting was no big deal, but I was feeling anxious. And so I pull up, and it's not even like I made a good choice. Like, I could have gotten something that was, I guess, like coffee, or I don't know, something that isn't 1,200 calories, like the chicken McGriddle that I got. So I got a chicken McGriddle. I had no business getting a chicken McGriddle, y'all. No business. I haven't even been to McDonald's in I can't even tell you the last time. Like, I don't eat McDonald's. Like, what am I doing? So I get my chicken McGriddle. It is so good. So here's a little aside, and I am not like trying to advertise for McDonald's. Do not go and buy this chicken McGriddle and then come, messaging me about it. But I'm just saying, it definitely hit the spot. You take a piece of fried chicken and put it in between 2 pancakes with the syrup baked in. Yeah, girl, that's gonna hit the spot. Okay, so I ate my chicken McGriddle, and of course I was like, okay, Kim, like, why did you do that? And somebody would look at me and say, now, you should not have eaten that. That didn't serve you. Well, on the contrary, it served me quite well. Okay, because first of all, it took my mind off of the fact that I was like super anxious. And second of all those carbs, when that carb load hit and my endorphins were released, it's almost like taking a hit of crack, right? Like it's the same like chemical reaction that's happening when you hit some dope. So it definitely served me. Now, I didn't say it served me in a positive way. It served me, it was very maladaptive. I should not have eaten that chicken McGriddle. It was it served me in a very negative way, but it still served me. So procrastination is very, very similar. Procrastination is serving you negatively, but it's serving you. So let me explain what I mean. Okay, so let's go all the way back to our ancestors. So our ancestors are, let's say, on the African savannah, right? And they're living in a cave somewhere, right? Y'all, this is not 100% historically accurate. Just work with me with the story, okay? So let's say our ancestors are in a cave, and they know that they need to leave the cave at some point because their food supply in the cave is running low. So they need to go out to hunt, to gather, right? And so what is outside of the cave, right? Probably a pack of lions, probably a snake, probably some bears, right? Lions, tigers, bears. Oh my. So our ancestors are like, all right, I know I need to leave the cave. However, I need to make sure that this is the right time. So the ancestors that were successful, right? They watched the weather. They watched, predators. They're looking out. They're making sure they're not just like running out of the cave and just kind of saying, I'm going to go get food. They are taking their time. They are analyzing the situation, right? So think of our cavewoman ancestors. They're like, okay, I know I need to do this, but I need to wait for the exact right time. And it's because that's adaptive, right? In that situation, you want to make sure it's the right environment, that you're avoiding predators, all of that good stuff, so that you are not falling victim to what is outside of the cave. So our ancestors did that really, really well. Now, there were probably a group of people, right, who they didn't consider all of that. They were like, listen, I just want to be a rebel. I'm just going to run out of this cave and do what I got to do. Never mind that there's like a pack of lions sleeping outside. Never mind that there's a snake that they're about to step on. They're just like, yo, I got to go. They're the wild and like kind of free ones, right? Now, sometimes they probably were successful and they probably made it back to the cave, but a lot of times they probably fell victim to whatever was outside of the cave. Those people that were just kind of wild and free, they didn't really live very long to have offspring, right? So we're the descendants of people that did this really, really well. They considered all of the alternatives. They thought about the best time to do this, right? Now, you still got to leave the cave because you still got to eat, right? So the cave woman still has to leave the cave to eat, but you got to make sure that it's the right time. And there's like all this analysis that you got to do, right? So we're the descendants of the people that did that really well. And there is a part of us in our primitive brain, our cave woman, like, is still there. So the cave woman within is still analyzing the situation, making sure that everything's gonna line up correctly, like all of the stuff that our ancestor cave women did. But now it's happening on a primitive level inside of our unconscious mind. Now, the cave woman, she wants to keep you comfortable and safe, right? So again, I want to extend grace. Like the cave woman within, she's trying to hold you back, but she's not like a hater, right? Like she's not a complete hater, right? It's just that we are designed, our brain and our body is designed for equilibrium, for a steady state, right? Anything that happens, our body is always going to be trying to move us back to a steady state, to equilibrium. It is very, very hard to push yourself. Can you do it? Yes. But the cave woman within is always going to protest. The cave woman wants you to be comfortable. Okay, sis? She wants you to be comfortable. She wants you to be comfortable, nice and chill. And she doesn't want you really like putting in that strenuous activity or having to think too hard. Every time you think, your brain is actually burning calories, right? And so your cave woman within, she's trying to conserve those calories. She's trying to keep you comfortable. Okay, so you're like, okay, I know I need to study for this board exam because I have it coming up in 6 months. And, that's what I need to do. The cave woman's like, yeah, but that sounds like a lot of time and a lot of energy. How about we just pull out our phone and scroll Instagram? Now, I'm not telling you something I don't know. This is me. Like, this is like, I am a reforming procrastinator, but I still have my moments when this happens. And I think of it like a chronic illness or almost like substance use. And again, not to trivialize that, but I never want to let my guard down. I am a reforming procrastinator, lest I fall back into my same old habits. Okay, so the cave woman, she is always, always, always going to try to get you to go back to your steady state. So you'll be like, okay, I need to submit this LLC paperwork. You'll sit down. So I would sit down. I would have my long to-do list, right? And it's like, okay, I need to knock out X, Y, Z. I'm super motivated. I'm the type of person, I love the pretty pens and the planner. Who feels me on that, right? Like, I love all of those things that help me feel like I'm getting my life together. And I write it out. I write out my pretty to-do list, sit down in front of my computer, and then what happens? The butterflies start to rise, right? Or sometimes butterflies don't even rise, but I'm just like, I look at the to-do list and I'm just like, I don't feel like doing this. I just don't feel like it. So I'm going to do something else. Or I know this is really important, but let me just like go on Pinterest. Like, I've always wanted to decorate my backyard, my back patio. And like, I'm just wondering what like the backyard furniture would look like. Like, why at that moment, right? It's your cave woman. She wants you to be comfortable at all costs. She will sabotage your efforts every single time if it means that she can be comfortable in the moment. Now, something your cave woman, what's frustrating for us that are high achieving, right, is that you know in your heart of hearts that the thing that you need to do, so let's say submitting that LLC paperwork, writing that blog post, recording that podcast episode, you know that that's going to move you forward in life, right, toward your purpose. But the cave woman does not care. She doesn't care. As if it's not easy and comfortable, she's going to make you sit there and turn on Netflix. Like, that's just what's going to happen every time, every single time. What's frustrating, like I said, for us who are high achieving women, but all of us have this. We have our rational self, right? So far we've talked about two people. We have our cave woman within, and then we have our rational mind. Now, rational you, right? That's your like higher order you. That's like your frontal brain you. That's like the part of your brain that makes you who you are, that gives you your personality. That's the part of your brain that is, into like judgment and higher order thinking and planning, and like that part of you, the rational you, right? Rational you knows that if you send that email to your boss, to have a meeting about whether or not you can get a raise, that will set up your future for success. So the rational you in that moment is like, okay, I need to do this. This is important. Important meaning this is going to move my life forward. The cave woman does not care about the future. She only cares about keeping you comfortable now, right now. But what she will do is she will tell you, don't worry about this, sis. Don't worry about that email right now. Future you can do it. So we have three people now. We got the cave woman. She's trying to keep you comfortable. Rational you is trying to actually like move your life forward. And then future you. The cave woman will always point you to your future self. Let me tell you about future you. Future me, future Dr. Kimmy, she's dope, okay? She has her life together. She is, future Dr. Kimmy. She's been promoted on her job to associate professor. She probably has gotten a large grant working with state and local agencies to reduce the maternal mortality rate. She has a side hustle, so she's an entrepreneur and she helps women, walk in their purpose, right? And not only does she do that, but she's like a multimillionaire. She's able to build generational wealth for her children and all of that good stuff, right? She's a philanthropist. Not only does she do all of that, she meal preps for her family every Sunday. She meal preps every Sunday. She makes like elaborate keto dinners for her children to make sure that they, their hemoglobin A1C is not too high, but that they are still able to appreciate the finer things in life, like all of that jazz. Okay. Like future Dr. Kimmy has it all together. The cave woman, she doesn't care about your future, but she loves the future you. She loves putting future you in front of you and saying, nah, sis, you good. You good. You can open Facebook. You can open Facebook and scroll because future you will handle it, right? And you will give in to the cave woman every single time. Why? Why do you give in to the cave woman? Okay. So this is the part that, when I learned this, I was like, okay, this makes so much sense. So you are likely equating your future success or failure with your self-worth, right? So let's take the example of an exam. Let's say you have an exam coming up. right? It's a big exam. It's a big deal. You know that this is something you want to do to move your life forward. And in order to get to the next step in your life, you need to pass this exam. So procrastination and the cave woman, right? What she's going to do, if you think about it, it is actually perfect. It is the perfect defense mechanism, because here's why. If you procrastinate, right? So if the cave woman comes out and she's like, nah, sis, you got this. Let's, scroll YouTube. So quick aside, have you ever gotten lost in a YouTube rabbit hole? Like, you'll sign onto YouTube and you'll be like, okay, I'm going to look up videos on something related to my purpose, right? Like, I'm going to look up videos on like the best way to help my kids study for exams. Or I'm going to look up videos on like how to start a business online, something like that, right? So you'll have every intention, but then YouTube will show you crazy videos and you find yourself clicking on it. Next thing you know, it's been 2 hours and you're watching a looped video of like, I don't know, like Michael Jackson's hair catching on fire in that one Pepsi commercial. And you're like, how did I even get here? You can't even figure out how you got there. Sorry, again, aside from my own life, because this is like stuff that has happened to me in the past. So, okay, so you need to study for the test, but think about procrastination. It is perfect. It is the perfect defense mechanism. It's so cool. Like, it's not cool because it's like not moving your life forward, but it's just interesting how it literally is perfect. So if you procrastinate on that exam, let's say you procrastinate and you don't do well. You procrastinate and you get a C, or you even fail the exam, or what have you, right? What can you then say? You can say, oh, that's okay. Yeah, I got a C, or I failed, but I procrastinated. I barely studied. So, I'm not like less successful, or my self-worth is not affected by this, right? Because I barely studied. But let's say you procrastinate. And I did this in college many times. Let's say you procrastinate, you take the exam and you blow it out the park, right? Let's say you get like an A+ and you kill it. You just kill it. Then what? Right? Then you can come back and be like, oh, look at me. I got an A+. I didn't even study. I studied for like 2 hours before the exam, child. Like, I'm dope. And then your self-worth skyrockets. But even if you fail, you're protected because you have an out. Procrastination gives you an out because you're able to say, you know what? It's fine. I didn't even try. I bet if I tried, I'd do better. And it's all because the cave woman is trying to protect your self-worth. Many of us have grown up with the false belief that our accomplishments mirror our self-worth, meaning if I get an A, then I am more worthy than if I were to get an F. It's the messages that were taught to us throughout our life, right? You were taught that you either are smart or you aren't. You either are intelligent or you aren't. You're either someone who learns quickly, or you just don't. It's very rarely that we are telling our children, oh, you did so well on that spelling test, little Johnny, because you are just such a great, preparer. Like you studied so hard and you've just worked so hard. What do we tell our kids? Oh, you did so great on that test, little Johnny, because you are just so smart. You're just so gifted. Don't even get me started on the gifted program. But anyway, you are just so talented. And we think that those things have something to do with who we are as people, because no one is saying that if you like they'll say, yeah, if you work hard, you'll succeed. But at the same time, when you get an accolade, We tell our kids, oh, you're just so smart. You're just so brilliant. And so we grow up mirroring our accomplishments to our self-worth. Your cave woman, right? Because she is trying to protect you at all costs from going out and getting eaten by a lion. She is going to tell you, protect yourself. Don't study for that test. Don't do it, right? Because if you study and you don't do well, then that might really, really hurt. That might really, really affect my self-worth. But if I can say, oh, child, I didn't even study for that. No biggie. No biggie. It is what it is. Like, I'll try again next time. Then that sort of shields me. That protects me from sort of lowering my self-worth, right? Because a lot of us as high achievers, we tie our self-worth to our accomplishments. So sometimes we just won't even start something if we think we're going to fail. If the cave woman thinks you're going to get eaten by a lion, that there's a lion, never mind that the lion is probably like miles and miles away, she will keep you in the cave. She'll keep you in the cave every time. So that's sort of where procrastination comes from. And I want to start talking about how to overcome it. Based on now what we know about procrastination, that it is a perfect defense mechanism for us. And it doesn't necessarily mean, and what okay, a little bit of a tangent. Y'all know how I do now. By now you should know how things work around here. Tangents are common. So I get really frustrated and sad for people who they will beat themselves up about procrastinating by saying that they're lazy. I get so sad because, well, number one, because I used to do that, right? Like I thought if I could just be more disciplined and just, get my to-do list in better order and just like all of that good stuff, that I would get my life together. And then when I couldn't do it, I really, really thought for a long time that I was just lazy. Laziness has nothing to do with it. Laziness has nothing to do with it. I'm telling you, you're not lazy. You are scared. It's fear. Your cave woman is scared that you're going to get sent out and get eaten by that lion. But that doesn't mean you're lazy. And why this is so acute, like look at everything you've accomplished in your life. You have accomplished more than 98% of the people in this world. You are not lazy. You are a human. To procrastinate is human. And I just want to make a quick another tangent, another aside. There are some people, and this podcast is not necessarily for those people, but there are some people who have anxiety and that propels them forward. So one of my favorite YouTubers is Amy Landino. I love Amy because her videos are great, but Amy and I are we're completely different people. Amy feels anxiety, and that's what propels her to like getting all of her stuff done. It's the same anxiety, it's the same fear of failure, but it manifests in a different way. She's like hyper focused, laser focused on like achievement. I got to achieve my goals. Now, that can sometimes lead to a little bit of perfectionism, which we're going to talk about in future episodes, because that's also self-sabotage. Perfectionism is self-sabotage as well, just manifested in a different form. But people like me, and perhaps people like you, if you're listening to this podcast, we feel that anxiety and it pulls us away, right? We're like, okay, I'm just gonna pretend like I don't have to do this thing. And that is the way we protect ourselves. So make sure that the folks that you're following and the folks that you are allowing to influence you understand your type of anxiety. We all have baseline anxiety. I'm not talking about anxiety disorder or anything like that, but just like that baseline like anxiousness about doing stuff. For some people, it propels them forward. And those are the type of people that will be in your ear. Oops, sorry about that. Goodness. Those are the type of people that will be in your ear saying, come on, sis, get it done. You just got to develop discipline. Just be consistent. Like all that stuff. And you'll be listening to them and you'll be like, yes, I'm going to get it done. I'm going to do the thing. And then you're like, why can't I do this? Like, why can't I just be like Amy and get it done? It's just because Amy's anxiety makes her behave differently than your anxiety. It's all anxiety, but our anxiety pulls us back. And we shield ourselves by staying in the cave. The cave woman is shielding us by staying in the cave. So just wanted to throw that out there before we start talking about ways to overcome it. So have I completely overcome my procrastination? Not completely, but man, when I tell you I am light years better than I used to be, I mean, I used to just be stuck. I would have a presentation to do and I would procrastinate until the night before. And I'm talking big presentations. I'm talking keynote addresses. What am I doing? Like, I'm waiting until the night before to do it because it was so anxiety provoking that I just could not get started. And what happens is when you procrastinate as much as I did, you feel so terrible while you're doing the other thing. So you'll be doing the other thing that your cave woman is making you do. The cave woman's happy. She's chilling. She's happy. She's like, yes, right? So that part of you is like comfortable. But the rational you is very, very, is unsettled because you know what you should be doing, but you're not doing it. Right. And so you can't even really enjoy that scrolling time on Instagram. You're trying to watch videos on YouTube. You're not even really enjoying it because you're like, man, I should not be doing this. I should be studying. I should be working on that business proposal, whatever it is. Right. So the first step for me in overcoming my procrastination, and this is evidence-based, but I didn't know it was evidence-based until recently. It was just how I approach things. I first had to become aware of why it was happening. So not just okay, I'm procrastinating now, but I would literally take out my bullet journal. I always have my bullet journal with me. It's sitting next to me right now as I'm recording this. And I would write down how I'm feeling. So, okay, and it would start off really rudimentary. I am not wanting to do this assignment. I don't want to study, right? And then I would ask myself a series of why questions. And I'm going to do a whole episode. Let me write this down so I can remember. I need to do a whole episode on the why strategy. So asking yourself a series of why questions can sometimes get to the bottom and the root cause of things. And this is something that I learned from Stacey Flowers. She's amazing. Follow her all over the internet. She's amazing. She's a coach and she taught me this strategy of asking yourself why. So I would say, okay, I don't want to study now. Why? I don't want to study because it makes me anxious. Why? It makes me anxious because, right? And you see how you keep asking yourself why questions and then you get to the heart of it. I don't want to study because it makes me anxious, and it makes me anxious because I am so scared that I'm going to fail and that I'm going to be seen as stupid by my colleagues or something along those lines. Or I don't really feel like I belong. I feel like a fraud anyway. And so if I take this exam and I fail, it's going to reinforce that fraudulence within me. Something along those lines is what I would do first. And I literally, I'm telling you, I do this still. So I did this, was it yesterday? I'm flipping through my bullet journal. I think it was yesterday. I literally wrote down, let me see if I can find it. I literally wrote down, okay, here we go. I am feeling anxious about this nomination, even though I want it. So it's an award that someone would like to nominate me for. And I actually am really excited about this award. It would actually like be really amazing if I received it, but I'm feeling really anxious about the form that I need to fill out and send to this person so that they can nominate me. So I just write it. I write it out. Now, this is very rudimentary. I used to spend more time writing out the why, but like I know why. I have so much self-awareness now that I know that I know my why at this point. I'm anxious because I'm scared that I'm going to put all this work into this nomination. Someone's going to nominate me and then I'm not going to get it. And then I'm going to feel like a failure. So I know that. So I don't have to write that all out anymore, but I definitely have other bullet journals that are also sitting right next to me where I was very, very like open and like just kept asking the why questions because I hadn't fully developed that awareness yet, but I have it now. So I still do this. This was yesterday. This was yesterday that I wrote this down. So I still do this. And I just want to say, spoiler alert, I did start working on it. So like this strategy does work. I do this and I'm telling you guys about it because it actually works. So the first step is developing that awareness. And again, we talked about this in one of the prior episodes when I discussed the POP principles, but metacognition, thinking about your thinking, that is the first step for any of this stuff. It's just like understanding how your thoughts are translating into what you do. So that's step number one for me, is that I write about it. I put it on paper, right? Pop. So get it out of your head. Put it on paper, right? Write it down. Things just get so much clearer when you write them down. And I'm not saying you need to show this to anyone. Nobody needs to see this, but you got to get it out of your head and get it onto paper. Okay, so that's the first thing that I do. The second thing that I do, if I'm procrastinating about a specific thing, is that, so again, step one, write down how I'm feeling. And then the next line, the next part of what I'm going to do is I am going to break down the task into smaller items. Now, the reason this works, you have to remember that the cave woman wants you to be comfortable. Now, she doesn't care how that comfort comes, right? So she just doesn't want you to be spending a lot of energy and time and burning brain calories, right? So she wants you to be comfortable. So if you can make that big, scary to-do list like thing more bite-sized and less onerous and more comfortable for her, then you are more likely to put the cave woman to sleep. So, example of this. I did this yesterday. So about that nomination, I said, and I'm writing this down, I said, I will do the first paragraph and come back. So that's what I do. I always do this. I break it down and I write out what my action plan is. I am only going to do the first paragraph and then I'm going to come back. And then I come back and invariably what happens is you do that first paragraph. It wasn't that bad. And then you just keep going, right? Because you realize that you were kind of psyching yourself up and psyching yourself out for no reason. So I ended up writing, I think like 3 or 4 paragraphs. I'm still not done. I need to finish it this afternoon, but I ended up writing like 3 or 4 paragraphs because once I started the first one, I got into the flow of it and it really wasn't that bad. But the cave woman just needs to know that whatever we're about to start is somewhat comfortable. If it's comfortable, she's cool with it. Go ahead, write that first paragraph, sis. Open that email, write the first line of that email and then come back. But if you're like, okay, and now I'm going to write my entire business plan in an hour, the cave woman's like, haha, that's funny. No, you're not. You're going to go on Instagram. Right? So you have to make sure that whatever you're placing in front of the cave woman to do, whenever you're telling her you're leaving the cave, that it is something that is comfortable, right? A baby step. And that's why the zone of proximal greatness works. That's why it works. So if you think back to the episode on the POP principles, moving into your zone of proximal greatness, so just taking the next best step, that's one of the reasons it works, is because the cave woman's cool with that. She's like, all right, we could take the next best step. We could take baby steps. I can do that. That is doable, right? So those are the steps that I take. I actually have an entire guide on planning for procrastinators. If you go to www.planning.productivepurpose.com, you can download your free guide, and it sort of walks you through these steps. And I will come back in the future and do an entire episode on how procrastinators can better plan and actually execute their goals in this new season, this new walk of their life, where they're wanting to override these sort of negative associations. One more thing I want to mention. So if you go back to my episode on the POP principles, you know that I am all about keeping your first morning promise to yourself. And I want to reiterate that and explain why in the context of like the cave woman and the rational person. So if you think about the cave woman, again, she wants to keep you comfortable, right? So you set your alarm. So the night before, you're like super excited, right? You're like, yes, I am going to wake up tomorrow morning at 4 a.m., right? So you set your alarm for 4 a.m. and then your alarm goes off. And then what do? You hit the snooze button, right? So first of all, your cave woman made you hit the snooze button, right? So your cave woman is the one that makes you hit the snooze button, or just turn off the alarm altogether and just be like, sis, we're not getting out of this bed, because you're comfortable. Getting up in the morning is hard because it's a change from that steady state of rest. It is hard to push yourself, especially if you're trying to wake up early in the morning. That is difficult. So the cave woman's like, nah, sis, we're not getting out of this bed. But you can do it in 9 minutes, right? So you hit the snooze button, and your snooze is set for 9 minutes, right? So like your cave woman again is putting it off to future you. Future you will get up. You don't have to get up right now, sis. Go back to sleep. Future you will get up. Now, the reason why this matters, and the reason I'm talking about this in the sense of procrastination, is that rational you, that higher order you, who's being overrun and beaten down by the cave woman day in and day out, rational you is looking at what happens every single morning. So the first thing you do in the morning is hit snooze, right? But then rational you is like, oh, let's sit down and do this to-do list. And here comes the cave woman rearing her ugly head, right? And the rational you starts to believe, I guess it's true. I can't do hard things. I don't do hard things. Waking up, that's the first hard thing that you need to do in the morning. And you can't even do that. This is what rational you is saying. I can't do this, right? The cave woman is always going to win. I'm always going to have to just maintain that comfort level. I can't even get up in the morning. And that's the first promise I made to myself. You need to start convincing rational you that you can do it. And the best way to do it is to get rid of that snooze button. I'm telling you, I used to snooze for an hour and a half every day. I used to be the one that would have like 6 alarms set. And I just know that I can go back to sleep because there's another alarm coming in like 10 or 15 minutes, right? But that would beat down rational me so much, right? I started to believe the cave woman that I can't do hard things. So then how it's almost comical that later on in the day I would sit down and try to actually do something hard. It's like I didn't have that faith in myself. I had no faith in myself at that point, because I would wake up frazzled every day, late, like scurrying around, yelling at my kids, frustrated with my husband, just like in a panic, frantic every single day. And then I'm supposed to actually sit down and do things that would move my life forward. Yeah, right. That's hard. And rational me can't even be trusted to get out of bed, right? When that's a hard thing. So one of the overarching things that you can do to really convince you, the rational you, that, you know what, I can do hard things, is get rid of the snooze button. That was, guys, when I'm telling you, I said it before in episode, what was that? Episode 4, episode 4 or episode 3? I'm getting all my episode numbers confused now. In the Pop Principle episode, when I got rid of the snooze button, that was the thing that really jump-started this whole transformational process of me becoming productive on purpose. That was the first step. I needed to convince myself that I can do hard things. So step number 1, even before you start the whole planning and all of that stuff, is to get rid of the snooze button. So another reason you want to get rid of the snooze button, right? So it's funny. There is only one thing that puts the cave woman to sleep. Excuse me, 2 things that put the cave woman to sleep. We just learned about one of them. When you build up your rational use, confidence in yourself, because confidence is a muscle, like I always say. But y'all know, if you're a procrastinator, you know the other thing that puts the cave woman to sleep. A deadline. Right? So a deadline will like run the cave woman like away from you. Like she will be running and just be like, all right, sis, do what you got to do. Sometimes a deadline is the only thing that puts the cave woman to bed. Now, some of us will tell ourselves, okay, yeah, deadlines. I give myself deadlines because I work better under pressure, or I only wait to submit my paper till, the day, like, if it's due at midday at noon, I'm going to submit at 11:58. And like, I just work better under pressure, and that sort of rush of adrenaline, that's what keeps me going. Well, a lot of us only work better under pressure because that's the only time we're actually working, because it's only that deadline that gets the cave woman to sleep. But I just presented another way to get the cave woman to sleep. That not just that deadline. One of the blogs, and I'm going to write down that I'm going to link this blog post, because this blog post actually likened the deadline to a monster. So the monster is the only thing that puts the cave woman to sleep. But you can put the cave woman to sleep also by building up the confidence of the rational you. So don't just wait for that deadline to come and run the cave woman away. Build up the rational you's confidence that I can do hard things by getting rid of that snooze button. And again, I'll do a whole episode on the morning promise, keeping that first morning promise to yourself, and abolishing the snooze button. But I just wanted to throw that little tidbit in there. All right, guys. So we have come to the end of this episode. I hope it was helpful. Today we talked about procrastination, the 3 different parts of you, the cave woman, the rational you, and the future you, and how all of those folks work together in terms of your procrastination. And once you fully understand that, it becomes helpful as you're starting to work toward overcoming procrastination. And the first step is being aware. Like I said, just writing it out, putting it on paper, asking yourself a series of why questions so you can start to understand how you feel and why you're procrastinating, because that's the first step. Breaking down what you need to do into bite-sized chunks so that your cave woman is less likely to be like, nah, sis, this is too hard, right? Make it easy for the cave woman. Go easy on the cave woman also, because again, she's just trying to protect you. She's trying to keep you safe. She's trying to protect your self-worth, because a lot of us have our self-worth wrapped up in the achievements and the accolades and the, past tests and, positive feedback and all of that jazz. But listen, you can put her to sleep, and not just with the monster deadline, but by building up the rational use confidence that you can do hard things. And you can. Once you start getting rid of that snooze button and really, really waking up with intention and gratitude every morning, you'll start to see a change in your life. All right, guys. So Thank you so much for being here. Remember, you can go to planning.productivepurpose.com to download your free Planning for Procrastinators guide. And if you are interested in hopping on a call with me, you can go ahead and email me. My email address is contact@productivepurpose.com, or you can shoot me a DM on Instagram. My Instagram handle is productive_on_purpose. I also would love to see you in our Pop Squad Facebook group. It's very small right now. There's only there's maybe 20 or 21 of us in there, but we are already rooting for each other and supporting each other, and it's just a beautiful thing. So click on the show notes and you can catch the link so that you can come into our Facebook group. If you are really, really interested in starting the No Snooze journey, I also have a No Snooze group. It's called the No Snooze Crew, #No Snooze Crew. And so you can join that as well. So just check out the link in the show notes. All right, y'all. I hope you have a blessed week. Peace and love. Thank you for listening to the Productive on Purpose podcast. Now, take the next step. Head on over to www.productivepurpose.com to download your free Planning for Procrastinators workbook. It's time to start walking in our purpose, y'all. I'll catch you on the next episode.